Opening things up here, Cedar Mountain. This is the 7 o'clock turn, and well, the Union went already, and just continuing fighting along this line. We see Early getting driven away. Now he can't come back because he's out of brigade effectiveness, so all he can do is hold territory. It looks to me like the Union's getting this hex. This unit's pinned, and that's one of Early's units. Can't really get out of there easily. He'll stick around there as long as he can, but he'll be getting driven out pretty soon. It looks like that flank's collapsing, but the Confederates still hold this hex, even though the Union looks like they dominate it. Over here, Cav managed to not get pinned, so it was able to charge, eliminated the unit that was facing it. See the push going this way towards the cornfield. The Union's withdrawn into the cornfield. Now, this is one of the things that first struck me with the Terrible Swift Sword is kind of weird. And the system's kept it, and to tell you the truth, when you start playing things like even CWB series, etc., units have a fairly easy time of not just turning around and facing an enemy behind them, but when there aren't solid lines of enemies, and there was a 4-0 unit down here in the cornfield, just whipping around, getting behind it, and getting big flank shots. I'm not sure what all that's supposed to represent. You know, to some extent you can say, well, they're kind of disorganized, they're not solidly linked. You would be able to set up an attack of some sort by getting organized, but it feels really weird. I used to, especially with there were little headquarters units in Terrible Swift Sword, and they're very fast. I think they have like 10 movement points as though they're cavalry, but they fire as though they're rifles, and they can just whip around and get into place. Now, they were only able to do defensive fire, but it was like little motorcycle troops running around in the middle of the battle. It was really weird. But here, even with the infantry, you have this tremendous flexibility. The Union line's facing this way, turns around, marches back, and hits, but still open to these guys. One of the problems was this unit was pinned, and I couldn't get it out of the battle. This routed thing is just some abandoned guns. There's no abandoned guns markers here. I marked my guns that way. Anyway, this was oh no, this unit was the unit that was routed out of the cornfield, I believe. He got meleeed, retreated, and then routed. Alright, up to the Confederates, and we got the last of Hill's units coming in, and they pretty much seal the fate in terms of the Union being able to hold this line very much. But there's still sort of a local advantage right here that I want to be able to try to take some points away from what the Confederates are going to gather just by holding territory. Alright, now we push into the 7:30 turn, and the Confederates manage to swing around and encircle mostly Geary's unit. It's been wiped out. You can see some of the corn's getting mowed down too. But this guy got some of Bayard running here. That came from over here. Over here, a couple shot. This guy stuck in there. Alright. Union side of 7:30 p.m. And historically the battle was about over here, but it's not really finishing. The Unions marched up and grabbed 2 of the victory point hexes. They finally broke through here with bayonets fixed. And here they actually charged in, and they're engaged with the guns. This stops the bleeding, but it's too late. It had to happen earlier than that. Except for maybe the higher price the Confederates are going to pay for their casualties. Geary's command, like I said, it's encircled. We've got the rest of Hill's forces marching their way up. Thomas, of course, is already in and hasn't been included. We'll bring more of them up there. There's not much value to them. I'll probably shift branch this way. In fact, I may move most of Hill's forces up that way, because that's where there is any Union resistance left. And the Confederates are quite weak here. Early and Ronald. And Taliaferro is very close to breaking, but Early and Ronald are both brigade ineffective at this point. So they can't really attack the enemy. Right? This is going to, if I don't get troops there, and I don't have any to put there, this is going to remain as an attack on those guns that I can't throw additional stuff in, and that's like 3 points in the Union advantage. I can't throw these extra troops in as far as I can tell because of the brigade ineffectiveness. I'm trying to keep Taliaferro from advancing as well. I've got to kind of pull him back. So this cav could be a threat. It's only a threat down the line, although I kind of, every 2 hexes, I give them an additional. Some other games do that, and I just fudge that in because I think straight hex row is just too weak. But we're only talking 3 hexes here, so in a sense the straight hex row is probably safe enough anyway. But I like to change things. Alright, well, it's the Confederates' turn to try to get things into place. Rebels push up further. You see Hill's division kind of trying to fill in the gap here near the wheat field area. There's not going to be any terrain points this turn. We had a loss though. Augur was killed, and that means I have to promote somebody. I don't know who gets promoted. It's probably determined in the specific roles. Augur is replaced by Geary, which means Geary is now the commander, and we use his parenthesized value, and we get a replacement for Geary, whom I'm going to put here. That'll give him an advantage for rallying that. Actually, I don't know if that happens right now, though. Final command may be per side, and this is the Confederate turn. Yeah, he's not replaced yet. So, yeah, that happens during a player turn. So the Union is going to be under out of command restrictions for Augur's command. Now there isn't a lot of Augur's command left. There's Geary and there's Prince back here, whom I've been forgetting about. I don't think he's going to be doing a lot, but he's out of command, so he could only be moving 1 hex max anyway. I'll push him a couple hexes down. He's happy. He's in a house. He'll stay there. One thing I did want to point out, though, I moved the turn marker forward, of course. Geary's command is being caught in the rear here. It's been disintegrated everywhere else. There's 1 routing unit there. Just give you some idea of what's going on. Baird, what's left of him, is running. Over here, the Union actually won that melee because the Confederates couldn't bring anything into play. And Early's still down here facing a bunch of Union units. This guy's kind of holding the line here, and he's in range and in command. So right now there's not going to be any more terrain points for a little while. I lied. Oh yeah, because the Union hold this one as well. The Confederates hold these 2. This one's probably not going to last very long. The Union the Confederates are sweeping in there, and they'll probably be able to get another 2 points at least. We'll see. Ronald can't get any closer, so I have to swing branch through there or something. But these guns that are aligned on both sides have been pounding each other at close range across the wheat field, and they're pretty hammered. That's been really being reduced. I don't know what else to say. Confederate fire disintegrated the Union unit in here, and really Early's managing to pin them down. They didn't pin Early down, but they got another shot at it. If they don't, he's got to get out of there. He can't enter a zone, but he can slip in behind this guy. Of course, then he takes withdrawal fire and may end up stuck where he is. But he won't get offensive fire, so he's going to just not be shot, not be able to shoot. So if he retreats here too, well, at least he's working his way towards his command. He can only move 1 hex, though, because he's out of command at this point. He's been pinned for a long time, and Early's command's kind of fallen back here. Elsewhere, well, Geary turned around and shot up a lot of cornfields here. Not much else. not a lot of movement happening here. There's not a lot left of the Union, and the Confederates are pretty much in the position where they're sweeping forward and wiping out what they can left. Just to show the degree of not a lot of Union, I looked over all the units. These are all the brigades that there are. There is one that's not broken, which is Gordon, and he's 9 out of 13 down. Now Gordon is this little command down here. That's the only thing that the Union can advance with. And I want to get these guys out, but there's no chance to. And these guys are actually holding their own. And right now they have 2 of the victory point hexes. So, well, the Confederates are going to advance again, I think. If they can. That's not going to be Ronald going forward. And that's the end of the 8 o'clock turn, and now you're starting to see something kind of like a TSS type situation, a nice big line. Of course, it's not facing a big line. The Union's pretty much wiped out even in this area. Only Gordon, like I said, is holding up in terms of brigade effectiveness. Over here we finished up Geary's units. I think he has 1 strength point left, kind of routing up this way. Down here, the pressure hasn't really gained me much, but it's created a kind of big pincer movement. The Union's going to have trouble just even getting out of here, except that night has fallen. So maybe they'll be able to slip away because of that. Early decided to stick around. Now, one of his units got routed. He didn't get to fire. Trading fire, we got rid of at least 1 unit from here. And now we're at +4. For the turn in terms of terrain, because we have 6 of the terrain or 3 of the terrain hexes. That gives us 6 points. Only this one's held by the Union, so that it nets out at 4. 8:30 turn. This is the last turn of the game. End of the Union turn. You know, not a lot they had to do. Basically, it was trying to dress their line and just hold on to what they've got, but the pinned unit that was here got routed back. Now that rallied. This guy rallied as well. Otherwise, a couple of leaders lost. Crawford was wounded. Bayard was killed. Those are more points. Not really going to have an effect on the game too much at this time. In fact, the only thing they could have done was affected rallying. And I'm just trying to think if there was any place that they could have done anything. It looks to me like Bayard's unit is destroyed. Every strength point is gone. So he's no big deal. The other one, Crawford, well, I was able to make a rally check because the divisional general was there anyway. And that's a check only because they're brigade ineffective. So I don't think there's much left to do except for the Confederates to grab this hex. And if they can do some more casualties, great. But they want to make sure not to lose any brigade combat effectiveness at this point in the game. That would just be foolish. And you'll notice I've been holding people back for that very reason. So Taliaferro's command has been given the chance to rest. I like that factor of the game when you don't want to let damaged units go forward. I don't tend to pay enough attention to it, which may be why I get the bloodbaths I do. Not just here, but say in TSS, it's really apparent where you know what the casualties should be. And when you get 3 times those casualties, you kind of say, is that right? The problem is, as a game, the fact that you know you're going to lose brigade combat effectiveness doesn't mean that you don't also know that your opponent is. So it's worth trading off those points. For the Confederates, in this case, their points are worth more than the Union commands. So they kind of want to not press the attack so much when it's brigade effectiveness. Notice a couple of things. First of all, I had to, as almost always with these series, dig into my number counters. That's just one of the factors with this, unlike, say, later GMT games. These SPI games kind of, especially the S&T edition ones, kind of say, well, we're only giving you so many counters. If you want numbers, you probably have them somewhere else, or you can use something. Unfortunately, that also applies to the corn down counters. Now, it hasn't turned out to be too big a problem in this scenario, in this particular playing, but I didn't have too much fighting in the cornfield. And I could see where they could become a real lack. No reason to conduct the final rally phase of the game, final command, all that. The Confederates pretty much punched through the remainder of the line here, captured some guns after shooting the crew out, and have driven everything the Union has off the field. These guys running, we captured Gordon, General Gordon here. Williams is dead now. Just racked up the points by the Union standing around, being there, basically. Some lucky casualty rolls, obviously, but also fresh units that could actually, you know, not only fire on their offensive fire phase, but also melee and stuff like that, really made the difference here. And it's nice to see. I think this particular game captures that very well in a way that some of the earlier ones don't manage to. The BCE rules for this work very well. Trying to figure out why this is such an ahistorical ending for me. One of the things is, when you look at the historical account of the battle that's included in the magazine, I'm not really familiar with this battle. It's a pretty minor one in terms of, you know, not getting a lot of coverage usually. Well, it looks to me like Early's corps was over, or Early's division was over here, or brigade, or whatever you want to call it. It's kind of disjoint. Was over here along the river line, and he's one of the quickest guys who can get here and grab these extra points. So, if the Confederates didn't concentrate on taking all the victory point areas that they did as early as they did, if they concentrated on perhaps trying to position themselves better in the game, they are likely, well, obviously it's not better, right? The point is that this victory point position and this one have some nice terrain around them for defense. So whoever gets to them first gets kind of a bonus. And there's kind of a little bit here. And this, it's good for defense for the Confederates, but not particularly for the Union. So it's kind of a strange situation where the victory point hexes, I think, kind of caused me to play in a way that maybe isn't as historical. It certainly made me focus on getting this territory with the Confederates very early, and that territory cost the Union fairly heavily to attack. It's not where the Union got the most hosed. The Union got the most hosed in the clear terrain, the less defensible areas, but they had their weaker units there, in essence. Although I didn't really study or think about this too much, I just moved everything forward to try to grab what it could as quickly as possible without paying any attention to the historical or whatever. I had been debating myself whether or not to give this an actual review. I think I'm going to, just mainly because of that gives me a justification for posting it on places like 2D6 or Concept World. Without a review, it's just a playthrough, and it's multiple videos, and it's hard to package together. I'm not sure anybody really wants to see that. Well, look, I know some of you want to see that, the people who've been watching, the small number, but yeah, somehow reviews just get lots and lots of views that the playthroughs don't. Nobody's really terribly interested in the playthroughs. I don't understand it, because I don't understand why people are watching the reviews, to tell you the truth. Alright, up it goes. Well, that just shows you where my thoughts lie in a game. I was about to clean it up and I realized, well, I didn't even bother scoring it. Now, something like this, obviously, look, this was a complete blowout, and that should be obvious. And why should I score it? But, you know, doing it on video, and I am kind of curious to see how the scoring worked it out. Well, the Union won. No. No. I scored out the points for each of the units. So, for example, Williams's command on the divisional basis. Williams's whole command was worth 57. Augur's was worth 63 in terms of the losses they took. That's counting casualties, captures, leader losses, and brigade effectiveness losses. Bayard was only worth 26. The artillery losses for the Union were 56. This all added up to 206 loss points and another 46 points for the terrain in favor of the Confederates. The Confederate losses were very light, actually. 11 points from their artillery, 45 for Early. He was a big deal here. His 30-point swing, he was injured, and then some units captured as well as the kills. And his unit breaks easily. Well, a lot of them do. He's not terribly good. Only 6 points for Hill's division. Ewell's division was worth 36 because of the big Trimble break, and Winder's division was worth 34 because of Ronald breaking. I was able to keep Taliaferro from going under, which would have changed that. That only worked out to be 126 losses, so you can see the Union lost heavily by losses. And if you look at the board, you can say, yes. A lot of that is because the Confederates got the good terrain early. Other than that, it's tough for me to say why the Union just got so shattered. Having this hole in the center where there wasn't a lot of fighting, was that the effect, really? I mean, everybody went and grabbed the interesting terrain where the points were. I don't really know. It looked like they just dissolved under fire. They obviously have the numerical inferiority and cannot stand in this fight toe-to-toe, and that may be the problem, but they can't afford to withdraw because of those stupid victory point axes. They can't, just say, okay, the hell with this. Now, I would, once you start seeing that you're losing the battle, you got to get out of there. This is also a hard system to get out of a battle, as any tactical game should be. Withdrawing is difficult. This is not terrible. You take one round of withdrawal fire, but that's not the big deal. The big deal is all the units that get pinned and that you have to leave behind and watch them get decimated without support. That's why it's tough to withdraw in this game. Anyway, sort of an addendum to the final video. Now I get to clean up.